Welcome, everybody, to the Adult Chair. I'm Pete Wright, and I am here once again with Michelle Chalfant.
Good morning, Pete.
How are you? How you feeling?
Feeling really good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling so good. I'm feeling so good. I've been tapping like crazy.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to ask you if you're in your adult chair. You are if you're doing your tapping.
Oh, yeah. I was doing my tapping. Something serious.
And still no pain for you.
No pain. My shoulder feels
my
great. But you know what? This is in the spirit of follow-up. I did. I got myself really frustrated. I found myself getting so worked up, and it was one of those. I teach. I teach the MBA program. I'm teaching an online class right now, and one of the things that I tell my students is, it's an accelerated program, and so the classes are very quick. They take one class at a time, but they focus for 5 weeks on that class. So I tell them, I know you work hard. I try to get your grades back quickly, but please understand, I'm also a working professional like you. Sometimes it takes me the full week between classes to get you your papers back, and that. And so before I'd even had a chance to even grade the first week's work, a student posted in the chat forum how frustrated he was that I'd even sent that message, that this was completely unacceptable, that getting work back after 1 week was completely unacceptable. How could he possibly get better if he's not getting feedback the next day after the course week ends? That hit me sideways really hard, because I work hard as a teacher. I work very hard to give great and conscientious feedback, and sometimes I make the trade-off of, hey, you're going to get great comments from me. You're going to get great feedback, and it may come at a cost of being a little bit later. So it hit me really sideways, and I stood in the kitchen, and I thought, I was getting so worked up. I thought, well, maybe I just won't grade his at all. Just those little bits of poison that kind of sneak in. Yeah. I thought, I'm going to try it. Nothing really hurts, but my gut is just twisting because I'm just frustrated.
Yeah.
And so I did it. I did the tapping, and I found myself just release.
Wow.
I had to do it a couple times, but I went through it, and I did it, and I did all the right spots, and over the course of about 15 minutes, I was breathing easily and feeling good.
Oh my God! I love it.
Right? It was all stupid. And of course, he has a great point. Like, he is totally in his rights to make that comment. And maybe the tone that he used was not appropriate. Maybe he could have, all these sorts of would-coulds. But he's right. His intention is right, and I need to respect and honor that as his role as a student.
Right.
He is also working hard. So those things didn't come to light when my stomach was tied in knots, and that felt really, really good.
Isn't that so cool? Because then we can slide over into the adult chair and gain clarity on what the heck is going on. But when the stomach is in knots, we've got all these feelings coming up, and the mind's pushing them down, so they're stuck in us.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you let the energy flow, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is the higher perspective I was looking for.
That's right. That's
awesome.
I was like, that's
so
attaboy,
glad.
Pete. I gave myself an attaboy. Attaboy, Pete.
I love it.
Way to put your big boy pants on.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're using it. It's such a great thing. I love EFT.
Oh, me too. So we are talking about cultivating deeper connections with others today. But before we do that, just a little bit of old business. Make sure you head over to theadultchair.com to learn more about this show and subscribe. There's links to subscribe for free in iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. You can also follow Michelle at twitter.com/MichChalfant or Facebook.com. And those links are also on the website at theadultchair.com. And call us. It would be so great if you called us, 931-463-3813. In particular, if you have tried EFT, I would like to hear your story. So please give us a shout. Again, 931-463-3813. How is EFT working for you? I hope it is working as well as it is working for me.
I want to talk to somebody that's stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Somebody call in. Let's get some people to call in.
Absolutely.
Let's work with them.
All right. Old business out of the way. Today, we're talking about cultivating and nourishing deeply connected relationships. What does that mean?
Yes. This is a topic I know we kind of touched on before in another podcast with relationships, but I just feel like it needs to be talked about again. So many of us try to connect. Of course, as we know, men connect, as you say, as men say, by sex.
Listen to that.
Well, because you're a man. So most men go, if we could just have more sex, then life would be great.
I mean, I'm not saying I don't, but really?
I know. And then women say, we just don't talk enough. It's like, okay, that's all true. I get that that's true. I get that men are physical. I get it. But I will say this, because I've worked with enough men to know that when we are truly in our vulnerable place and showing our partner who we are, like really who we are without our mask on, and that partner does not judge us and run away, then we feel so seen and so safe, and then we can connect on that deep heart level that most of us are longing for.
Right. Well, and to your point, I mean, I think that's one of the challenges of dealing with men. The manly approach to intimacy is physical and also as a result one-dimensional. It is,
and I honestly, I have so many men that go, "Well, should we just don't have enough sex? That's the problem." I'm like, no, that's not it. And I've worked with really tough, big, giant men, and when I get them in my office with their partner, and I'll help them to really get in, and I call it getting under the hood. Like, what are you really feeling? Because we all cover our feelings either with anger or with a story. Well, if I say, what are you feeling? They'll say, well, I'm feeling really, angry because she blah, 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 blah. My partner, yada, yada. And they have a story. I'm like, I don't care what the story is. We want to get underneath the story and find out what the true feelings are. And when we can sit in a relationship and we can exchange what do I feel and what do I need with another human being, that's where we start to form deep connections. That's it. That's the key. We all want to feel seen and heard, and we want to feel safe, and we really just want to be known. Like, we want to be known without a mask. We want to be able to be real to our partner, tell them exactly who we are, what we're feeling, and what we need, and not be judged for it. What happens is people, when I set them up in this, what I do is I'll get even sometimes a child chair and an adult chair. And, one person's in the adult, one person's in the child, and the adult's job is just to sit in their adult chair and ask their partner who's in the child, okay, what's going on? I want to hear what's going on, and I need to know how you're feeling. And it's so hard for the person that's in the adult chair not to get triggered. Because if their partner is saying, well, when you did this, you made me feel blah, blah, blah. It's the whole blaming and all of this. That other person gets triggered, and then they start defending, and then it winds up in a big, huge fight. So if you want to learn how to connect to another human being on a deep level, you have to hang up the idea of fighting. Just say, all right, I'm going to spend 30 minutes with you. No fighting. I just really want to know you. And I want to know, what are you feeling because of blah, blah, blah. If something happened, then what I have my couples do is I'll say, when you go home, I want you to start using the language like, hey, I need you to be an adult because I have some things I want to share. So there's the sharer and then the listener, and the listener is in the adult chair, and their job is just to mirror, validate, and then ask what that person needs.
It's funny to hear you talk about it this way. It sounds like, I am practicing the language. It sounds very much like you need to support that person in whatever chair they're in. Mm-hmm. And let them live in that space for a bit. Is that right?
Yes, without judgment. Yeah. And what happens though is, again, we get triggered. So if someone says, well, I don't feel like you're really here for me, then the other person might say, what are you talking about? I'm always here for you, and I defend you all the time. It's like, no, because everything that when we're in this not a good place, let's say with a partner, we're in the blaming, which is all adolescent. We're blaming them. We're this and that. And that's all a story. Think about like a big layered cake. We want to get to the cream filling, and the cream filling are the true feelings. So everything on the outside of the feeling is blaming and trying to make the other person bad. And why weren't you here? It's like, no, what is the feeling when all of this other stuff is happening? So when I didn't stand up for you, how did it make you feel? And so if the one person's in the adult chair and their spouse or partner is in the child chair, the adult just keeps asking, I really just want to know how you feel. And whatever response comes out of the child chair, that adult is to sit there and just let it go by them. Don't let it land. It's just a story. And it's taking them deeper into the true feeling.
All right. I think we need let's talk about an example. I know you have an experience that you were talking about wanting to share here, and I think this is what this gets to for me is this idea of what does it mean not to let it land.
I had an experience with my husband last week, and same kind of thing. I was just feeling, I was really in process about a few things, some deep things. So I was really quiet. And I wasn't in a terrible mood, but I was just kind of quiet and keeping to myself and just releasing some of my own emotional stuff I was going through. And after a few days of it, he came up to me. And by the way, he did ask me, like probably on day one, what's going on with you? And I could have said, I'm in the middle of a process that I don't really understand. So just give me a couple of days. But I didn't. I said, no, I'm really okay. So I could have been more in my adult, but I wasn't. I said, no, I'm fine. I'm okay. But I wasn't. And for about 3 or 4 days later, he came up to me and I could tell uncomfortable. And he says, we need to talk. You're so off. You're so off and you're quiet and you're not this and you're not. And I said, okay. I said, let's go outside. Let's talk today at 2:00. So we made an appointment, went outside on our deck and we sat and talked. And he said, you have an issue with time. We are in competition for time. I said,
wow.
What? I was like, what? But it didn't land on me, but I really knew that I wanted to have this conversation from my adult chair. And no matter what, I was going to sit there and hold that energy as best that I could. So I sat there and I listened to him. He goes, and you're in competition for time with me because you have so much going on and I have so much going on and blah, 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 blah. And he's going on and on and on. And I just listened. And then he was done. And I said, that's not true for me. In fact, that doesn't land on me at all, but I let him go. I didn't stop him in the middle and defend myself and say, you're bullshit. I don't know what you're doing. I just said, okay, well, that's not true for me. And I said, let me tell you what's true for me. I said, I don't know. I said, I was in process and I'm sorry I didn't tell you, blah, 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 blah. And I said, what's true for me is I really don't feel like you have my back as much as I would like. And then he defended on that. And I'm not saying this to slam my husband by any means. I'm just telling you, this happens. This is being human. Mm-hmm. But what was cool is that I was able to really sit there and watch it. And that's what we do in our adult. We observe everything that's going on. And I said, okay. I said, so anyway, so at the end I said, tell me something. I said, how does it make you feel when I am like kind of off like I was for a few days, just kind of keeping quiet to myself or whatever I said to him. And he said, I felt really lonely and I really wanted him to go into, the child place, the deeper place. So he told me how it felt first, like from the adolescent. And he said, well, I felt like blah, 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 blah. And I said, get into the feeling. I want you to tell me, what is the feeling? And he said, abandoned and lonely. And I was like, oh, there it is. I said, I so get that. So I validated that for him. And then I said, so what do you need from me? And then he said, well, more sex and blah, 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 blah. And I said, no. I said, I want you to imagine that you're 0 to 6. Drop back into that really beautiful, vulnerable place. What do you need? And he's like, nurturing. He goes, that's weird. I didn't even know that was in there. And I said, that's your child. So I said, tell me what that looks like. And he said, when I get home from work, I'd love for you to come over and hug me wherever you are. It was very simple. I said, Sure, I can do all of those. And I'm so happy to hear that. So I said that to him. He told, and then we did it with myself, and then he says, well, tell me about you. What are you feeling then? What do you need? And I told him, and it was like changing to our marriage, just having this one interaction that lasted, I don't even know how long, maybe an hour. But we were able to get, again, like under the hood, like what are these core feelings? And that's where couples or people in relationship need to go if they want to have a really deep connection. And we get triggered by what that other person says because we don't want to own. What we do is, we own what they're saying. So with my client today, he said he felt, or his wife was saying that she felt abandoned and this and that. And then he got triggered and tried to defend himself. Well, how can you say that? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's not about that. You can't defend what someone else is feeling. Just let them feel it. And when we do that, then we're able to get closer. And then we're able to be with that person and they've taken off the wall or taken away the wall that they have in between you and them. And then you start to connect. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm just saying this is where we as humans fall short because we defend ourselves when someone else has an emotion because we don't want to feel our own emotions. Does this all make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. And this idea that so much of the initial conflict comes when you feel like you are unsupported, and then it perpetuates the fable that you're telling yourself, right?
Right. It does.
That ends up being a really gloomy place. And it is really powerful that you guys are able to do that in an hour, what I think many people take years going round and round in the dark place, without having that sort of shining a light on it in that way. I think that's a really useful thing. I have a really sort of superficial thing I want to share in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that started out as a joke between my wife and I, and has turned into something weirdly substantive in our marriage.
Yeah.
It started out as a Facebook thing, right? You know, one of the, I don't know what it was, BuzzFeed or HuffPo or whatever it was. And the article was something about, the 3 most powerful words in any relationship. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I'm a sucker for clickbait, and so I clicked on it and I read it, and the words were, if you really want to have a great marriage or whatever it is, it's not "I love you." You think it's "I love you." It's not "I love you." It's not all the things you might think that it would be. It's "I got this."
Yes.
I got this.
Knowing somebody has your back is what we all long for.
Exactly. And so it started out, I read it to my wife and we kind of chuckled about it, because we hadn't had this sort of awakening about what you're describing, right? This idea of support and knowing confidence that you have that support. And so it started really small, that we would say like, it'd be the morning, we got to go down and help the kids make lunch. And someone would say, "Oh, don't worry, honey, I got this." And we would kind of nod and wink, and it would be that little stupid thing. But the result would be whoever said it would go down and help the kids make lunches, and the other person wouldn't need to think about it.
Right.
And then it would become more substantive, right? I would come home at the end of a really long shoot or a long client day, and I'd be exhausted and kind of broken, and the kitchen would be a mess. And I'm usually the guy who cleans up the kitchen. And she would say, "Hey, I got this." And I would sit down, and I would know that the job would get done. And that transformation between subtle joke between us as a couple became something that really is a powerful statement in our marriage. And now, we're dealing with some significant things right now with our, dealing with the IRS and this, identity theft nonsense. And knowing that when she looks at me and says, we have a difficult phone call to make, and I got this. And I know that she does, because now it's not just that I feel supported; it's that my trust in her has gone up, and we've been married, for 16 years, and I'm still learning to trust her more every day.
Yeah,
and that ends up being a really powerful statement for us.
It's a process for sure.
Yeah,
it's definitely a process, and it takes practice. But I'm offering this today in this podcast just to give people hope that even if you're sitting in a relationship, again, even if it's like mother-daughter or husband-son, it doesn't matter. We just remember that other person, when they have all this hatred and anger for you, they are covering up so much pain.
Right.
And that's where we want to connect. That's where we want to connect. And when they ask you for something, remember, they're in that child. Like when my husband, when I said to him, I want you to, one of the things I said I needed was, I want you to say that you've got my back, or that you've got me, something like that. Originally, like I said, originally he was like, "What do you mean I don't have your back?" And I said, right. "I am 6 years old coming to you. Are you going to defend a 6-year-old?" He goes, "Okay." I said, what do you need? And I said, "Just tell me you've got," just hearing those words changed me.
Yeah.
He didn't have to take any action. I was like, "Oh, it's like you can take a deep breath and sit down and relax for just 1 second. It's
exactly.
like, oh, that feels so good." And again, no action had to be taken. I just needed to hear it. So what you guys are doing, amazing.
Well,
it does.
It does. And you just
really
described it.
You.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, you just described that feeling that you get when he stops and says, okay, wait. What do you need? That's the I get this sentiment. That's the I got this kind of emotional response that we have now. It is a conditioned sort of Pavlovian experience now. When you hear it, like when I hear it from her, I relax. My muscles relax. My shoulders relax. I am a more open and trusting individual as a result of it. And it still has that little twist to it where it started as a joke, but it's become something really, really powerful. And that's what you're describing.
Yes, because in the child is vulnerability, true feelings, true needs, trust, and intimacy.
Yeah.
So if you can't just have the intimacy, you got to have the I mean, you know the difference between sex and truly building a connection with somebody. I mean, it's different. It's very different. You really build a different sex life. Everything about this connection will change your relationship if you can connect on that level. But we fall into triggering. We trigger so easily because let's face it, we're all wounded. We all have our stuff.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to be seen as bad. And we've got our shame. We're trying to cover it up. Stop covering it up. Stop it. Own it.
Own it. That's wonderful stuff. What a great opportunity for cherishing and building and cultivating these deep relationships. That's just wonderful. Let's see. I think it's a good enough way to wrap up as any. Do we have any other old business or announcements for the people?
Nope, I don't think so. I don't have anything.
I've got nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. Hey, thanks everybody for listening, for joining us on this journey this week, and we encourage you once again, head over to the website, just hit on theadultchair.com, subscribe to the show for free, make sure you don't miss an episode, and call us 931-463-3813. On behalf of Michelle Chalfon, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week in The Adult Chair.